Jets General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff has been fairly busy in this offseason trying to address some of his team's needs. One of their biggest needs, of course, comes on defense, where they had a lot of needs last year. Ken, so far this offseason, what's your sense of what they have accomplished on the back end?
Yeah, Sean, I think it was a steady off season so far. Not a lot of big name hunting, if you will, like we maybe suspected at one point, given the cap space situation. But a lot of that got eaten up by the Paul Stastny deal. So the biggest deal, obviously, is bringing back Dylan DeMello. And now I understand why people would think that it's such a similar decor to the end of last year. But for me, DeMello is the linchpin, if you will. He only spent 10 games plus the 4 qualifying round games. For me, not only did he bring stability to the back end, he helped bring Josh Morrissey back to the player we've been used to seeing so much during the last couple of years, where he really took on that elevated role. And I expect Morrissey to have a really important season for the Jets, along with DeMello. Derek Forbort is a guy, not a big name, but he's played first pairing minutes with Drew Doughty in the past. So for me, I think it's more a matter of leaving an opening for some of their younger players, 2 top prospects in particular, Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg. And then also, too, Sam Yaniku is a bit of a wild card when it comes to this group. Where does he fit in? And does he fit in? Even after signing a deal, there still could be a trade involving he or someone like Jack Roslovic to come. But for now, I think the Jets are probably more comfortable with the group now than they were going into training camp last year, especially after the news regarding Dustin Byfuglien.
So they can go the rookie route in trying to plug some of those holes on the back end. But the big question I think Jets fans have at this very moment is, are they done addressing that back end in the offseason?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sean. I don't think we know the answer right now. I think they would be comfortable if this is how it ends up, but I also think there's another thing at play. The prospect of the expansion draft looming with the Seattle Kraken. I think the Jets are hesitant to add somebody with a lot of term, because that would mean potentially exposing someone like that incoming player or Neil Pionk. So I do think that what we're going to see when the season starts, because of the limited revenues coming in, I think there will be some teams that would be a lot more active in terms of making their players available earlier in a season, even if it's a condensed or shortened season. So I think the Jets could still add someone, whether or not that happens in the offseason. I think they're going to leave room for players to grow into the role. And if they show that they cannot handle it, then they will be active in adding potentially a top 4 guy with a limited term going towards a playoff push.
Well, Kevin Cheveldayoff has shown in the past he doesn't mind having his roster go into a season with some holes, leaving those holes for much of the season and then addressing them at the trade deadline. Do you see that happening again? And what do you think are the, potential pitfalls if he is to do that?
Yeah, it most certainly could. As you mentioned, a lot will hinge on who steps up into these situations. We know it's a pretty stable 3 of the top 4. We know guys like Forbort and Nathan Beaulieu have played top 4 minutes in the past, even though they're probably best suited for third pairing minutes. Same for Tucker Poolman, who had a lot of first pairing minutes last year with Josh Morrissey, but then steadied himself when he moved on to the third pairing. So if none of those young players can step up, I think the Jets will definitely be active. But is it too late? I mean, that's what we talked about with a short season. Man, oh man, there is an element of risk involved, but I actually think that the Jets have a better defense core going into next year than a lot of people think. I think there aren't the big names that we saw during the 2018 run to the Western Conference Final. And that year, we know that they had a $9 million third pairing. The days of those luxuries are gone, but I think that some of those guys on the periphery of the roster have a lot to prove. And I think that some of those young players can fill in the rest of the void. But I do think the Jets will continue to look. What that leads to and when that happens are 2 big question marks that remain to be seen.
Well, talking question marks, no doubt the Jets have answered a lot of questions that people had in their lineup, but I would venture to say it's no doubt that the biggest question mark remaining for this team still remains in their defense core. Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.